Hey guys. Um, so I hope things are going well. Um, so we've finished chapter 12, as you know, um, which is the end of micro, at least for the SLs. Um, it's kind of a weird spot because it's tough to move on to new stuff in this type of situation, especially when some of you aren't fully getting some of the key components of this. So I don't want to keep pushing on. Normally we would slow down a little bit and do some past papers and some tests and some written work, but that's difficult, especially when not all of you are turning in your work, um, which is a problem in itself. Um, so I guess we're just going to have to see. Um, Luckily, there's not as huge of a need to go too fast. You don't have assessments right now, so it's we're not in a horrible shape. So I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to do this week. I'm going to do some review work, kind of going through material and answering questions. I got some questions this weekend that I want to answer, um, so I will. I would like to go over papers, your paper that you were supposed to do on Thursday. Um, that was originally what I wanted to do today, but I can't do it if you don't turn in the work. So you need to do the paper, send it to me, and then I can give you feedback, send it back to you, and then we can go over it. But I can't do that unless you turn it in. So the hope is that we can do that tomorrow. I won't be giving any homework today, so hopefully that'll give you some time to finish up what you need to and get it to me so that I can update my spreadsheet with your grades. I will post the updated spreadsheet in the management post. So take a look there, see what you're missing, and get it to me as soon as possible. But I do need that past paper that you were supposed to work on. It looks something like this. If I actually shared my screen with you, I can show you. Sure. Okay. It looks like this. So um, make sure you finish this. It shouldn't take that long, um, but I need it. So send it to me as soon as possible. I can look through your answers, give you some individual feedback, and then go through it as a class and give the class feedback as well. For this work, you need to be doing your work on time. And a lot of you are behind. Some of you are trying to catch up, but it doesn't work if you save it all to the end and do it all at one time. That's not the purpose of this. You need to do it as we go. Some of you have been really good at it, and I appreciate that, but not all of you. So step it up and get going on it. So what we'll do is we're going to go through some material today. This is a double technically, but what I will do is the first part of the class will be the SL, and then I'll end the video and post another video for HL. And yeah, so it'll be half SL, half HL. But this is obviously the SL part. Okay, so we'll go through and get started. Like I said, we're just going to do some review because I'm still getting questions from some of this material. You should, in theory, have notes on it, but what I want you to do is create another section in your notes and just call it like review. Like you can call it micro review. And I want you to be doing your work in there. And then I can check that at the end. So do some notes and make sure that you are keeping track of it so that I can check those once we're done with micro review. So yeah, create a section in your notes, micro review, and I will take a look at those. So we'll go through it. Some of this stuff we'll just breeze right through because some of it's old or some of it's not massively important, or some of it I think you fully understand. So we'll go through that. So we'll kind of breeze through it. But again, if I'm mentioning something, I want you to make sure you take notes on it. Even if you think you have it, I want you to get it down again. Make sure that you're really good on it, because I do want to see that you are keeping up with this stuff. Okay, we'll skip through. Having a definition of free market's important. I still think some of us are misusing that term. Basically, a free market is when there's no government involvement at all, meaning that the market runs itself. This is done through a process called the invisible hand. This is where producers produce what they want and consumers consume what they want, and there's no government interference. Now, we know now that doesn't really happen because of market failure, that governments do need to get involved. But the idea behind free market is important. Even though we know it doesn't always work, it doesn't really happen, it's important to understand what it is, especially now that we have a better context of all of micro. Okay, I think we're okay here. I have actually seen a question that in paper 2, which we haven't started doing paper 2s yet, but the first part of paper 2 so paper 2 is broken up into like 4 sections: A, B, C, and D. In A, what you do in A is you define, and one of the questions I've seen in the past for A is define economics, and I've seen people get it wrong because they just don't remember how to define it. So even stuff from way back when, like what does economics mean, can show up. So make sure that you're comfortable defining what economics is. Any definitions can show up anywhere, really. So making sure that you're comfortable with them could be a good thing. Keeping like a set of flashcards or a set of note cards on like micro definitions, and then when we go into macro definitions, could be really helpful for some of you, because you can't really answer a question if you don't have the key terms for it. So if you're looking for things to do during this time, like this is a good use of time to set up some of those revision tools to kind of help you in the future. And having note cards for the different sections of the course could be really helpful. So having definitions down for all of micro could really, really help you guys out. And I've shared most of these, I've shared most of this stuff with you already. Okay, scarcity choice, I am okay with that. Opportunity cost, I still think people are misusing this term. Quit this, so it doesn't. Nope. I think people are misusing this term. The basic idea behind opportunity cost is that you are giving up. What are you giving up to make the economic choice that you're making? So if we think more of a more recent example stuff that we've been talking about, if you are deciding to subsidize education because education provides a benefit to society and it's going to be underprovided and overconsumed in a society, then it's the government's job to fulfill some of that potential welfare and gain some of that potential welfare back. And by subsidizing education, they can gain some of that potential welfare back, and more people can consume education closer to the optimum output. But there's a cost to doing that. There's a cost to that subsidy. So because they're subsidizing education, they're not subsidizing roads, or they're not cutting your taxes, or they're not providing free healthcare. There's a cost to everything we do. So in your answers, in part B of question A or in your IA, you need to make sure that you are mentioning that opportunity cost. What is being lost because the government has made this choice? What is being lost because the government has decided to subsidize education? What is being lost because the government is deciding to educate people about the negative benefits of smoking? Like, there's a cost to that. So what is it? And how how does the government weigh those things? That's important. It's part of an evaluation. It's something that you need to do, but you can't do that if you don't understand what the term opportunity cost means. So make sure you do. Okay, factors of production. Um, these will continue to show up. They show up in macro as well. Um, land, labor, capital, management. Um, I hope we're comfortable with this. If you're not, here they are. PPC, PPF, again, these show up in macro as well. They actually show up throughout the course. This idea of increasing, being able to increase the capacity of your economy is actually something that we talk a lot about in macro. Um, we talk about it through what's called aggregate supply, which is similar to the idea of supply, but just more of a bigger idea for the entire economy, because supply is focused on one particular item or one particular business or one particular section of the economy, whereas aggregate supply is the entire economy. And we actually use this idea here, PPS and PPCs, for that. So when we get into macro, I'm going to assume that you know how to do this. So you need to make sure that you're comfortable with this. If you're not, you probably should. Here's a video on it. We're not going to watch that. Utility, I'm going to skip over that. Hopefully you're okay with this idea of exchanging, like what does a household provide? What do the firms provide? Again, we actually end up adding more to it in macro. So again, making sure that you're comfortable with it, because we're just going to keep adding to it. Things on economics you actually probably have found out, they kind of build on each other. So if you don't understand step 1, when we get to step 10, you're going to be lost because it just keeps building. So if you can't draw this, then it's going to be a big problem when we start adding more to it. Different types of economies, I'm not worried about that. Karl Marx, I'm not worried about that. Economic growth, we'll hit that again, I'm not too worried. Economic growth, growth development, sustainable development, themes of economics. All right, I'm okay with the rest of this. We'll hit economic growth again, so that's why I kind of skipped over it. Those are themes of economics. We've done some work on that. Okay, so we'll jump in here and kind of see how we go with different things. I'm still seeing people get this stuff wrong. It's obviously you just need to be comfortable drawing this stuff. You need to know it. You need to know off the top of your head. If you're not comfortable with things like demand, it's a problem, because when we move into aggregate demand, you're going to be using similar principles of demand in aggregate demand. And if you don't know demand, then when you get to AD, you're going to be stuck. So it's something that you need to get more comfortable with. And really what's going to start to happen when we get back into classes and stuff is every single double, I'm going to give you a past paper. And I'm just going to keep giving it to you, and keep giving it to you, and keep giving it to you. And if you're not reviewing some of this old stuff as recovering new material, you're going to do poorly. So Right now, when you're not having real past papers that are being graded, you should um, you should be getting ready and preparing, because right when we get back, I'm going to have to give them to you. So um, get ready now, because when we get back, it's just going to be constant. It's just going to be ongoing. So make sure that you use this time to prepare and not slack off, because once you get back, it's going to hit you pretty hard. So make sure that you're prepared. Um, you can see definitions here. I think the important thing to understand when you're talking about demand or supply is you're talking about the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at a given price in a given time period. So demand is, we're talking about a quantity, an amount. And that's really important when we get to this idea of law of demand, that as price falls, the amount that we demand is going to increase. That we are willing and able to consume is going to increase. That's important. And then so we're talking about getting into this idea of non-price determinants of demand, things that can shift the demand curve. People are still getting this wrong on tests. I've seen that they are shifting the demand curve when they shouldn't be shifting, or they're not shifting when they should be. You need to know what things can cause a change in quantity demand. What will cause a shift and what would just cause a change. So a change in price would just cause a change in the quantity of demand. We'll be moving on the line. Whereas something that changes that is not just price related will shift the actual line. So things like income. The more money you have, the more you can consume. Therefore, your demand, your quantity demand is going to shift. So you're moving here. Now we know based on normal and inferior goods that could potentially change things, but we are shifting the entire line because the income is changing. Okay, that's important. Price of other products, again, we'll change that. We've gone through this before. Compliments. Taste or preferences. This is pretty common one. When things become more popular, demand for them changes and it shifts. So something like a face mask, for example, is going to be a rightward shift of demand. That'd be actually something interesting. So actually, I said you weren't going to have any homework, and I've lied. What I'd like you to do is to draw a demand and supply curve for the demand and supply of masks. And I want you to shift it the way you think it should be shifted. And then I want you to explain it to me. So discuss what is currently happening with the supply demand of masks. So I think we've got I think it's 5-6 today. I'll finish typing that later. I'll just type the question so you guys can see it. It says discuss what is the current, what is currently happening with the supply and of masks. Use let's say this. B. Oh, that's okay. So you can see that. We'll post that with your lesson. Get back to it. Other things that could potentially change demand as well. Size of population, age, income distribution, governmental policy, which we've seen. We talk about market failure as well. This is HL calculations, supply. Again, make sure you're drawing the right line. I've still seen, even with my 12, sometimes they make stupid mistakes like drawing supply the wrong way. Supply goes up, demand goes down. So make sure you're drawing it the correct way. If you don't have the definitions for it, make sure that you're comfortable. Again, demand is, or supply is dealing with the willingness of suppliers to supply and their ability to supply within a given time period. So as price rises, suppliers are more willing to supply at those higher price points. So looking at determinants of supply similar to determinants of demand, if there's a change in the cost of FOPs, then that's going to cause a shift in the supply line. If producers expect something to happen in the future, it could change their ability to produce as well. If the government gets involved, it could change supply as well. We've seen that with taxing or subsidies. That's why we shift tax when we use a subsidy or a tax. We shift the supply line, not the demand line, because it's a non-price determinant of supply. So you would think, oh, a subsidy is making the price of a good go down, therefore demand is going to change, therefore we're shifting demand. But it's not. You're subsidizing the supply of the item. You're not subsidizing the demand of the item. So that's why we're shifting supply. Okay. So hopefully that's okay. Actually, well, I'll stop there because I wasn't actually planning on giving you homework, and I decided to give you something. So I will give you some time to work on that. So I'll end this here. Please get the video or make sure you take notes on this, and then make sure that you answer the question, discuss and illustrate. So you need to talk about what is happening. You need to think about your answering a part B of paper 1, like that amount. That's what discuss means. So you need to go through and do the deeds stuff. I should put that. Currently. I'm gonna put 4. Okay, trust the computer. Okay, so I will leave it there. Please get your work done. Try to stay on top of this. If you want me to review something Alvin asked me to review something about cap and trade, so I will try to put that into the next video. Um, if you need help with anything, you want me to go over something, I will. Just send it to me, and I will put something together for it. Hope you guys are doing well. If you need anything, please shoot me an email. Try to stay on top of things. If you're an HL student, make sure you watch the HL video. Hope things are well. Have a good one.